Perfect. So, I mean, just very briefly, because obviously you actually want to listen to him, but I'm a teacher, so I need to hear my own voice at some point this evening. So Angus, firstly, when he started school, he was really interested in coding, etc. So he came along and started asking us what it is we wanted, like how to do something. So we would guide him. Then he found Stack Overflow, and we never saw him again. The only time we now see him is when we're asking him questions. So that became quite useful, and I keep trying to get him to stay on to do year 7, but he's not having it. So yes, I'll kind of hand over. But last year, Angus came and said he wants to start a code club. We were obviously absolutely no problem, and every so often I'll tune into what they're doing, realise I have no idea what they're talking about and how little I actually know, and then I step out the room again. It's essentially how it goes. Just before I'll do, I will drop his website into the, yes, he has got a website, into the chat, because he'll be very happy with that. And that's his revision website for various subjects that he was doing. So he's built that, and then I'll plug that for him. But yeah, I'll hand over to him now.
Brilliant. Thank you. I'm Angus. I'm a 6th-year pupil at Stirling High, and like Miss McAlpine said, I've been running a code club over the last year, primarily remotely, obviously because of COVID. So I've got a few projects that I really want to show you guys tonight that we've worked on together as a club, and then I'll discuss what I wanted to teach them, and then how we use Replit to make it work remotely, because that's something that we found initially challenging, but Replit really helped us with that process. So all the projects that we've done, I really want to create projects that they can be proud of and easily show friends and family when what they've created, as I feel like a lot of beginner content isn't really understandable by non-techie people who don't understand the underlying logic, as they just see something quite simple on the surface and don't understand what's going on behind the scenes, which can be demoralizing for especially younger learners. So I found that gamifying projects really gets everyone engaged. So pretty much everything I'm about to show you is a game or links to a game in some way. And yeah, that keeps everyone coming back and learning more. So the first project we've got here is a Connect 4 game with an AI opponent. And we created this in January, February time, whilst we're remotely learning. And what we do is I would type the code over a meet call, they would copy it, and we could all work on it together because it was a call. We could discuss why we're picking specific coding concepts, and if they had questions, they could just ask me there and then. So just so you, it's quite simple. It just runs in the command line. We've got Connect 4. I can play a piece. AI plays a piece. I'll just let it win here. As you can see, it's won. And it's quite a simple little algorithm. Basically, there's 7 columns that the AI can play a piece. It places an imaginary piece in each column and then scores it based on how many pieces it are in line with. So if it scores 4 in a row, it's going to score that really highly, whereas if it just places one on its own, it's going to score lowly, very low, so that it picks the best one. And the main thing, this is the biggest thing we've ever tackled as a club. And what I really wanted to tackle here was functions primarily. As you can see from the code here, there's a ton of functions. And I always like to teach things in context. Like, I feel like a lot of stuff, sometimes you create a program that's small and realistically you're never going to use again. So instead, we wrote out a program with tons of code that was repeating itself, and then showed them, hey, look, we can actually make this code so much shorter and more readable if we just extract that logic out, put it in a function, and just getting them thinking about data flow and whatnot. And as well, just try to get them to think about how they write larger projects, because there's sometimes a hard jump from going from a nice small, like 10-line project to something that's 100 lines, like this is. Also try to teach them some good habits. Like you can see up the top here, we've got tons of variables, constants, and just getting them to think about not using magic values in their programs, extracting that out again. And then we always would show them at the end, we can just change one value now to change how the game works, rather than having to go through and find tons of repeated values. And also comments, really getting them encouraged to use comments. Yeah, and then we went back a month later, and some of them understood what they were doing, some of them had no idea what their programs did. So I like to think that they learned quite a valuable lesson from that. And this also gave them a small taste of AI and writing algorithms. So with this project, I wasn't really looking to give them specifics about how this algorithm works. It was quite self-explanatory, just simple scoring algorithm. But I just wanted to get them understanding that they can write algorithms. This is something they can go away and do in their own time and think about. Also looking at getting them thinking critically. So how can we break these projects down? Because on its surface, let's say, let's write an AI that can play Connect Four. That's like terrifying for first and second years. So we broke the project down into smaller chunks and just teaching them that that's like a good strategy for learning this sort of thing. And this is a recurring theme throughout all the projects we've done with the club, is I want to give them this fundamental building blocks that allow them to then go off and learn on their own, more stuff on their own. So I'm not just spoon feeding them information all the time, which can get boring. This project also uses Colorama, which is quite a cool, as you can see here, it's a module that Python uses that allows you to change the color of text in the command line. And we used it to create the board here. However, currently people are using it to display flags. They've written country quizzes, so they're displaying flags. And some of them are even creating 2D games with it, such as Snake, which is amazing. I also found that sometimes when we introduce tons of technical things over and over, like we're doing loops, now we're doing functions, we're doing classes, it gets boring after a while. So I like to sprinkle in these more fun aspects, things like Colorama, and as I'll show you in a minute, Google Text-to-Speech, which just keeps it interesting. Not really teaching them as much technically, but just keeping them interested in coming back and learning new things every week. So the next thing I'll show you here is Google Text-to-Speech. And this is Google Text-to-Speech. It's a cloud function that Google Cloud offers using things such as Google Assistant. And there is this Python module that just makes it really easy and free to interact with that. We don't have any account or make any HTTP requests. Obviously, that does mean it is limited in the scope of what it can achieve. However, teaching HTTP requests and all that is a lesson for another time, because that's quite a big lesson in itself. So I'll show you this running here. I really hope this works. Oh, that's annoying. Oh, I think that's working. I hope that works. If it didn't, I can send you the Replit after and you can have a play with it. But it takes in text and then it sends up to cloud, brings back it in like audio form as an MP3 file, which we can just play. Replit has built-in features. Because playing audio is more at a system level, it does get more complicated running that in the browser. So we do have to use these proprietary cloud proprietary modules from Replit to play that, which means it isn't backwards compatible to run on a system. But it's really good for just making something like this nice and simple. So this was a fun project that we tackled as a group. I've never used this module before, so I really wanted to take them through my process of how I would go about learning something. And we had a good, like, over 2-3 weeks working together to figure out how we would go about learning something new, how we find tutorials, how we read the documentation, and just getting them thinking about going and finding new things on their own. So I'm not constantly just coming and saying, let's do this week, let's do that next week, just getting them learning on their own. And then we came and applied this to other projects. For some reason, they all love quizzes. Quizzes are the things that they've all jumped on, and every week they're like, can we make another quiz? Can we make another quiz? So instead of printing, text, we came and we said, why don't we get it to say text? And I'm not sure if this is working. This is really frustrating. I'll just play it. Replit's a bit pernickety sometimes, but it does work. I'll again send you these replits if you'd like them to hear them. But we really elevated our projects by doing this, speaking the answers instead of typing them, and just really getting them excited. And this was another thing we were able to teach them how to use third-party libraries more by using something like this, something I'd never used, something they'd never used. So some of the benefits that I found of using Replit are when we were remote, if anyone has having bother, they could just share me a link to the Replit and we could work it out together rather than having to share their screen over the call, and that was whole awkward. But if they just shared me a link, we could work it out together super simply. Also has really good social features. So people in the club have been working together on codes, which is something I really wish I had when I was learning to code. It just means we don't have to use Git or anything. It's just because it's a collaborative code editor, you can just do it together super simply. They're also always sharing their code. They've got like kind of chats in Replit, I think, where they're always sharing their code. They're giving each other feedback on what they're doing. Um, and everyone in our school has Chromebooks. So this just makes coding so much easy. We don't need to bother setting up things on a system level. Replit just works. Obviously, there are some things that a full-fledged IDE on a system are just going to do so much better, but Replit offers like auto-completion suggestions and like doc strings. And I think if we like hover over some functions, it might show us. Yeah, you can see it's sort of loading there, but it does for some things give us docs, which are really good. It's good IDE features. But it just worked. It was easy. We don't have to worry setting up systems. And because it's in the web, it means they can code whenever they want. They're never tethered to school computers. They don't have to code, in lessons after school or during a club time or whatnot. They can do it whenever they want, which really gets them learning more because if they learn in their own time, they're just really drilling that in. I did want to use Pygame for the club, but Replit sort of made that tricky because it is sort of an SSH style text interface, command line interface, first and foremost, with like VNC GUIs attached on the side. So that does make it more tricky. And if you are going to use Pygame, I wouldn't recommend using this because it is possible with some hacky solutions, but it was just too tricky for us. And we ran into more issues that just prevented us from just coding. So a lot of all the things we've done here is I've always wanted to teach code in context rather than just programs that they realistically never use or enjoy again. So that was when we were using Connect 4, that was introducing functions and whatnot. And consistently, I just want to relate stuff that they're learning back to what they can build so they can understand what's the point of learning something. I could obviously just teach them loops, but then if I show them, hey, you can use this to really shrink your code in and not have the same statement printing over and over again, that's why we're going to do it in our like games and whatnot. So like with the quizzes, I would introduce the concepts. At the start was if statements, we would have chained if statements. It was ugly, it was a mess. But then we say, come along, we say, hey, we can use loops. And that eliminates some of that. And then we come along and say, let's introduce dictionaries. And that gets it down even further. And then functions. And now we're actually working on classes. So it's always just linking it back to stuff they really enjoy. And we've managed to get the club to quite a successful place where it's self-sustainable. So when new people are coming in, a lot of the younger students are actually teaching the new people what they've learned because they're just so excited and enthusiastic about the projects. And really also kind of encouraging them to do quizzes. I don't know how that started, but they all love quizzes, so they keep doing that. And we have a lot of different quizzes, like this country one I just showed you here. Yeah, so that's me. I just really want to thank Miss McAlpine for, giving me so many amazing opportunities like tonight and guiding me through my entire time at high school and even forcing me to have a social life. That's quite a good idea. So yeah, I'm happy if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer any questions regarding Replit or any of the projects we've done. And yeah, thank you very much for having me tonight.